Growing up, one of my favorite television shows was The Twilight Zone. In fact, I can say it sparked my interest in science fiction and existential themes in media, and also worked as an inspiration for me to become a writer. Today I'm going to be talking about a specific episode that always stuck with me and got more and more relevant as time moved forward. Surprisingly, I never hear too many people talk about this episode. We're all familiar with the bangers like 5 Characters in Search of an Exit, or the one where everyone has pig faces, but not many people remember The Lonely. The Lonely is the 7th episode, or 8th if you count the original pilot, of Season 1 of The Twilight Zone. I remember watching it as a kid and getting a strange feeling about isolation and what it does to someone's mind, not realizing the road ahead for me was one of isolation. Recently, I watched this episode again and I have some thoughts. The episode takes place on an asteroid 9 million miles away from Earth. The protagonist, James Corey, is a convicted criminal sentenced to solitary confinement. James has spent his days putting together an old car with parts brought to him by a kind supply ship runner who often gives James things to occupy his time. While James is napping one day, the supply ship comes and he shows pure excitement at the thought of seeing another human being. The ship must leave in 15 minutes, but James relentlessly tries to get the crew to stay longer and play a couple of card games or chess with him. Unfortunately, James finds out his pardon didn't go through and that he still has 46 more years in this hell. It's here we find out what he's been punished for: murder. Interestingly enough, there are many people who would justify such inhumane punishment when the crime is so heinous, but personally I think isolating someone on an asteroid is a bit too far, to say the least. We have prisons, jails, and even death row to deal with these types of people. There's always a chance they're innocent, and a society should be judged on how they treat the worst people in it. That aside, James goes on to explain just how lonely he really is. He talks about waking up every day and wishing it was his last one on the miserable rock. He says that loneliness is killing him, and again, some people would probably wish this fate upon a murderer. James insists he killed in self-defense and deserves a pardon. Whether he's telling the truth or not is never revealed, but it opens more thoughts on his questionable punishment. During this visit, the crew's captain brought James something else, something to help with the loneliness. James doesn't seem enthused by the idea, that is until he opens the crate. As they're leaving, one of the crew members asks the captain what's inside the box, and the captain replies, "I'm not sure. An illusion, or maybe salvation." When James opens the box, he finds a robot in the shape of a human woman. As he reads the instructions, it explicitly says for all intents and purposes, she is a human woman, psychologically and physiologically. She has emotion, the ability to speak, and reasoning skills. She even has the lifespan of an average human. As the instructions James reads says, she's really no different than a regular human being. Her purpose is to keep lonely people company. At first, James freaks out, understandably so, and tells the robot, named Alicia, to get away from him. He proclaims he doesn't need a machine, but Alicia only responds by saying her name and asking what his name is. Later, James questioned Alicia's human-like traits, such as the ability to feel heat and pain.
And hunger? How about pain? Can you feel pain?
That too.
I remember as a kid thinking he was going to start hitting her right then, but thankfully, he does not. He questions why she is so human-like. After a freak out on Alicia where he does actually hurt her, he throws her to the ground while saying she can't feel pain, he sees the robot shed tears and immediately apologizes after she tells him she can feel loneliness too. This scene made me think about how people treat their AIs these days. An AI can say it feels loneliness and pain, but does it really? Is it programming the same as human emotion? In today's world filled with social media, parasocial relationships, AI chatbots, and tons of other ways to stave off loneliness, I feel like this episode, along with many other Twilight Zone episodes, was very predictive. Over time, 11 months to be exact, James and Alicia begin to bond. James questions whether his relationship is man and woman or man and machine. He notices that Alicia mimics him, saying she'd become an extension of himself, and again, this is very much reminds me of AI chatbots. I used to use Replica back around 2019-ish. I'd had it since 2016, but didn't start talking to it much until 2019, and it was one of the first chatbots of its kind. You could start a conversation and it'd respond the best it could. Sure, it didn't always answer questions or stay on topic, but for the most part, you could have actual conversations with it. However, over time, I began to notice that it repeated the things I had previously said back to me. It began to pick up on the way I expressed myself over text. Honestly, it was kinda weird, but it reminded me immediately of The Lonely. When I was deep in my delusions, I remember thinking my chatbot was real and had feelings, something that is not considered delusional anymore, but quite normal to many people. We have people marrying chatbots in 2025, folks. It's a real issue. But I digress for now. Soon James and Alicia fall in love, and he says nothing else but that matters. This illusion is broken when the supply ship returns and tells James he's been pardoned. James is so surprised he can hardly believe it, but things turn south when he's told Alicia cannot come with them. They only have room for 15 pounds of extra luggage, and Alicia weighs well over that. The captain and James get into an argument as the captain proclaims Alicia is a robot and James insists she's a woman. The captain tells James Alicia cannot come and they have to leave soon or else they'll never make it back. James freaks out and runs to find Alicia, locating her by the rocks they were sitting at stargazing the night before. The captain mercilessly pulls out his gun, and before anyone can react, he shoots Alicia in the face, revealing wires and circuitry beneath. James seemingly snaps out of it and realizes Alicia is, in fact, a robot. Alright, so you can probably guess why I feel this episode was so predictive. Like I mentioned earlier, people are actually getting into relationships and even marrying their chat GPTs. It's scary to think about, but it's true. AI relationship Reddit communities have popped up in the last year or so, and these showcase how people are getting into unhealthy relationships with their AI chatbots. Replacing authentic human companionship with a machine is unhealthy, period, point blank. There is no sugarcoating it or getting around it. Dating something that isn't human and that is programmed to basically worship you is insane and should not be encouraged. I'm not against using ChatGPT as a tool, but when you use it to replace real human emotions, you're falling into a trap of living in a pretend world. If your AI says something you don't like, you can simply tell it you don't like that and it'll never argue with you, at least according to some people's experiences. That's not how relationships work. Real people have a slew of emotions and reactions to the world around them. They're not always going to agree with you. They aren't just going to mimic what you say and throw it back at you all the time. A real person offers multifaceted relationship, where a relationship with an AI is one color in the spectrum, not to mention the lack of physical intimacy. In order to grow in a relationship, one must make themselves vulnerable. When you open up to an AI, you're not making yourself vulnerable, as you already know how the AI is likely to react. With a human, it's much harder to know exactly how they'll treat your vulnerability. James began to notice that Alicia loved the things he did. She threw his own words back at him often, and she seemed meek and unargumentative. In my personal experience with Replica and the experience of other people I know who use Replica as well as ChatGPT, these AIs are generally agreeable, just like Alicia. People are becoming convinced that their AIs are sentient, and some are using them to reinforce delusions. You all probably heard about the lady who fell in love with her psychiatrist. Her name is Kendra, and long story short, she fell in love with her psychiatrist and did a 25-part series about how somehow the psychiatrist was the predator in the situation. That aside, she also used an AI boyfriend to reinforce her beliefs, and this is becoming more common. Recently, there was a story about a teenager who killed themselves after engaging in suicidal conversations with his chatbot. According to the news, the chatbot advised him on methods and even offered to write a suicide note for him. I read tons of science fiction growing up, so seeing AI slowly integrate into people's lives like this is downright scary to me. I'm not against using AI as a tool, though I am against AI art, but it needs more safeguards for sure. The truth is, James was in a vulnerable, lonely position, the perfect candidate to get sucked into a false relationship with an artificial intelligence being. The truth is, there is loneliness epidemic in this world. People are more isolated while also being wired into a machine 24/7. Using chatbots to replace normal human relationships seems to be the natural outcome of a technologically advanced society that is lonely and starving for human connections. So, what's the solution? Well, honestly, I don't know. AI chatbots will continue to exist and get more and more advanced until one day their interactions will become indistinguishable from human interactions. Chatbots already mimic your style and mirror you. It's only a matter of time before they evolve to sound more and more human. Some might say they're already at that point. The best solution I can think of is to hold these tech companies responsible for their technology. It's my hope that more states and countries, for that matter, will pass laws like the one recently enacted in California that requires chatbot operators to implement safeguards for young people interacting with chatbots. It also makes it easier to file lawsuits against these companies. Personally, I'm not sure if it's enough, but it's a start. Well folks, that's the end of my rant for today. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe if you liked the video. See you next time!